Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
For as Thanksgiving Day approaches, remember this from the October 3rd, 1863 proclamation President Lincoln made in the midst of the bloody Civil War. This year is drawing toward its close, has been filled with the blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies.
Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast, where we provide fatherly guidance to entrepreneurs at any level of their journey. Hi, I'm George Black, and this is AJ. Are you ready for this week's adventure of building great companies and discovering the Live Truly Free lifestyle for entrepreneurs? Awesome, let's get started.
Welcome to the Live Truly Free podcast. I'm George Black.
And I'm AJ Bishop. Today we have something special planned for you guys for Thanksgiving.
That's right. So this podcast comes out on Thanksgiving Day, and thought it would be fun to share the Thanksgiving letter from my book, The Next Level Entrepreneur. But let me explain. The book is actually a book of letters, and it starts with a young man named Max North, who's a wannabe entrepreneur, and he writes this letter to this seasoned tycoon entrepreneur, Mr. A. This all happens in 1941. So they've exchanged some letters, and this letter is called Gathering Storm Clouds. And Mr. A writes Max on Tuesday, November 25th, 1941, 2 days before Thanksgiving. And we're just going to kind of go through some parts of the letter and share some thoughts, because this is a little different than what we've normally been doing.
Yeah.
And so, a little more context, Mr. A and Max just got together and met for dinner a couple of letters before this one. And so they've actually met in person at this point. And so this is what Mr. A writes. Knowing that you benefited so much from our time together lifts my spirits, especially as the dark storm clouds of war gather around our country. As I shared at dinner, I'm deeply concerned about the war expanding in Europe. My sources tell me that we may only be a few weeks away from being drawn into the conflict with Germany. At present, our country is divided, but the nation cannot remain on the sidelines of history forever.
Yeah, so this is just kind of setting the scene, and we're a couple of weeks before Pearl Harbor happens here. And so we're at this kind of turning point in America where we're very divided as to whether we should be involved with this conflict or not, with many people viewing this as kind of just a European problem.
Right. So if you read the book, you can get it on Amazon. There's a lot more details will come out, but I'll give you some hints here. Mr. A is super well connected. Okay. Yeah. He's in New York City. He's got contacts in Washington. He knows some really important people there. And his sources, they realize, look, America has got to react to this. This is going to, the whole world is going to be consumed by this war. Imagine kind of like, and so it's like what they could see were like storm clouds on the Atlantic kind of headed their way to the United States, or at least to the East Coast. And so that's the context, right? Yeah. And they're having Thanksgiving. I mean, can you imagine 12 days, before Pearl Harbor? So then he writes this. I speak of this, Max, because this war is both real and illustrative. We live in a broken world. Bad things do happen, like the Nazis. Evil is intent on the destruction of all that is good. It being evil, will stop at nothing less than total domination. Similarly, evil assaults our dreams, our desires, and it especially assaults the truest things about us. The enemy of good strategizes that if one can be kept from living into their true purpose, then that person will never significantly impact the world for better. It would be like the Nazis convincing Great Britain to surrender even before a shot's been fired. And do not think they've not tried. It takes great resolve to resist succumbing to this kind of internal pressure, as evidenced by Mr. Churchill rallying England.
So Mr. A here is kind of taking this war and almost treating it as a metaphor for his previous correspondence with Max and saying there's evil in this world and it's going to try to stop you from being who you're intended to be or the fullest version of yourself, because evil wants to deprive the world of that fullest version of yourself.
Right. And yeah, in fact, the subtitle, the Focus Your Passions, is actually the first part of the book. The subtitle is Focus Your Passions, Map Your Directions, Build a Great Company. So the whole movement of the processes in the book, the strategic processes in the book, are all about, first of all, who are you? What are your passions? And what can you monetize? You just can't do anything. Mm-hmm. And so what he's referring to here is that all these previous letters, and that you still have to live into your truest self.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Great Britain reference is fascinating, because this actually, the Nazis actually tried to do this, where they were going to just try to get Great Britain to surrender their country.
And that would have been a whole lot easier for both sides, really. Like, Great Britain would have just been like, okay, no bullets need to be shot, no war needs to be fought, we'll just give it up. And that's kind of very similar to people personally. It's like,
right.
Sometimes they have the option to become their fullest self, but they choose just easier to not do that.
And so listen to this, because Mr. A goes exactly to that. Max imagined that as you pursue your desire to become an entrepreneur, evil assails that desire and shuts you down. So instead, you settle, living a safe and predictable life. What has the world lost? Some great service, some revolutionary new product, some life-saving device? We will never know. There's something much more far-reaching occurring than meets the eye. Life is hard. Good is opposed. Finding freedom from your disappointments is a fight. Pursuing your dreams and desires is entering a battle.
When I was reading this for the first time, that very last sentence, pursuing your dreams and desires is entering a battle, is what stuck out most to me.
Really?
And because Mr. A now is kind of tying this into entrepreneurship. Like, first paragraph, he was talking about you personally, and now he's pushing Max into entrepreneurship because he believes Max can do very well at it, and it's what Max wants to do. But he's warning him before, it's not going to be easy. Like, going down the entrepreneurial road is indeed a battle. It might have even been better if you wrote war. Here, because it's
Mr. A wrote this note.
Yeah, but it's a war. It's just it's a series of battles that you're going to have to fight, and they're kind of, it feels like never ending, and you never know how they're going to end, when they're going to end, why they're going to end.
Yeah. So if you look at the world today, and there's this huge pull to live this safe and predictable life. And even as entrepreneurs, okay, and you're starting out, I've been doing it a long time. I mean, honestly, even me, it's like, we want the adventure. We love the thrill of that. Maybe it's got some dopamine hits for us.
Yeah.
But we want it to be safe. We don't want all the risk with that.
Yeah. It's like, and the way Mr. A puts it, you settle, because at the end of the day, people, they value safety more than that adventure. So they settle saying, okay, I'll do safe and predictable rather than adventurous and dangerous, when if they had the option for safe and adventurous, they'd take that every time.
Right. Well, and that's how the insurance business got its start. You know, I mean, honestly, I've never seen statistics on this, but America may be the most insured country in the world. Probably is. We have the most lawyers in the world. Yeah. We think we'd have the most insurance to protect us from the lawyers. In other words, we're trying to live a life that's, we want both, and they don't work that way.
Yeah. For the adventure, you have to take some risk, and risk inherently diminishes safety.
Right, exactly. And so sometimes there's an evil intent going on, but sometimes it's just the pull of the world. You see all your friends, you know, they got the big job or whatever, and everything's safe and predictable and boring.
Yeah.
Because they're not. And so the real choice here, what Mr. A is actually talking about, is the assault that he's referring to here is to take us out of our passions. And we talked about this in previous podcasts. So you work your 40 years at the company, you get your pension, you go home, you die. Or maybe you traveled a little before. You know, I mean, that's very cynical, right? But the thing is like, whoa. Who are you here for? I think Mr. A nails it here, where he says, what's going to be lost by the world?
Yeah. And then
what is it that you could bring, I could bring to the world that is in us, that if we don't, it'll never happen?
Yeah, if you don't make that decision, we'll just never be able to know.
Right. And so that's, and we could go on this, we won't, but there's countless things that have come out of the United States of America because of its entrepreneurial spirit, that only in the last 100 years, that for all of millennia didn't exist.
Yeah, because of willingness to take risks.
Right. But Mr. A goes further now in the letter, and he says this. He writes this. He doesn't say it, he writes it. Similar to the storm clouds of war that are gathering around our country, there could be storm clouds of a different kind of battle gathering around you. As you are receiving fresh insights and tastes of newfound freedoms, remain alert. You will encounter setbacks. Keep up your defenses. Stay focused on your journey. Resist any opposition. Even one of the wisest and richest men who ever lived knew these truths. King Solomon's advice was, quote, above all else, guard the sum of whom you are. That is, what is most true about you, for it is the wellspring of life. Max, let nothing thwart you from your pursuit of living into your true self. Do not allow the threat of war against our country discourage or dissuade you from this journey you have begun. Yes, it may be hard, but well worth the rewards. Success on a journey of this kind will exceed the abilities of your own self-efforts. So remember the founder's reliance on divine providence. Do the same. If war happens with Germany, then consider it another assault to overcome on your quest to live authentically. Do not be dismayed by these unfolding events, Max. He packs a punch in this, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's really, this kind of ties the personal from the couple paragraphs before, the entrepreneurship with the one right before this, and it ties those two together nicely, and it's like, Max, this is just another one of those evil fights that's coming with you to stop you from being your fullest version of yourself. And he's really pushing him into, don't let this stop you from wanting to become an entrepreneur. Don't let this break your spirit and make you settle for that light, safe and predictable and boring life.
Right. And so now this is a whole different dynamic, but we had something similar with the pandemic. Now, a lot of people left jobs and started pursuing their passions. Yeah. And they're trying to do that right now. So it's kind of almost the reverse of it. But there's also entrepreneurs who had their businesses and they're getting shut down.
Yeah.
And so all of this is assault against who we are, who we want to be, what's authentic to us, what are our passions. It's not just like the 9 to 5 where I just go, show up.
And this goes back even to like one of the first things we read here was that the world is kind of broken.
Right.
Like, bad things happen, and all those bad things are just working to try to bring you down and stop you from being your fullest version of yourself, because doing that's hard. Like, it wouldn't be so rewarding once you finally live into that version of yourself if it was easy.
Yeah, this is, okay, first of all, the world is not kind of broken. It is broken. And here's what this is doing, guys. This is context. This is Mr. A's worldview, okay? Yeah. And if you have this worldview, you're not going to be caught off guard. If you go into entrepreneurism, or as an entrepreneur, I don't care if you've been doing entrepreneurism for 40 years, if you adopt this worldview and you go, you know what? this is true. Mr. A is right. This life is hard. It's been an assault on who I am to live fully into that. And we get beat up out there. If you know that, you're stronger for that. You can defend for that. You can prepare for it.
Yeah, it's truly a test. It's helping you figure out who you are as well, because you're not gonna. I mean, some people might, but I mean, I know for myself, I don't have that entirely figured out. But as you go through the journey, as you handle the battles, as you face the headwinds, you learn more and more about yourself, and you become stronger in your resolve for who you actually are, and you're more confident in your ability to live fully into that person.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have noticed or not. I'm a few years ahead of AJ.
Yeah, just a couple.
And I don't have it figured out. In fact, I just went through a week of tough stuff, okay? Relationship stuff. But I've learned so much about myself and like contracts and things like that and relationships and how to do some things. And I'm better for it. And it's changing everything I'm doing from here on out.
Yeah.
And so you never stop learning on this. It's always good. Mr. A does something that is so powerful in this letter. So that's all the context, right? And then he goes, for as Thanksgiving Day approaches, remember this from the October 3rd, 1863 proclamation President Lincoln made in the midst of the bloody Civil War. And we're going to kind of unpack this proclamation. It's very short, so this isn't going to take long. But I want you to just imagine this. This is October, and in July, literally 90 days prior to this, was the bloodiest battle of the Civil War, Gettysburg. And here is what Lincoln writes. And I think the takeaway from this is how we respond to the assaults, to the evil, to the world just kind of getting us to compromise and just settle, okay? Here's what he writes. This year is drawing toward its close, has been filled with the blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies. I'm just going to pause right there. I'm like, that is not what I would have concluded.
He's in the midst of the Civil War. One of the bloodiest days in American history happens not too far before this. And when he's addressing the country, he says, yeah, the fields are looking good and the sky's looking beautiful.
Right. So here's what he's doing. Imagine Thanksgiving 2020, okay? The world is completely shut down, right? And he's going, and what this is it's something I learned years ago called gratitude therapy. And it's just like, here's some blessings. The crops are doing good. The skies are beautiful. There may not have been anything else to say was going good, but that's what he does. And then he says, to these bounties, which are so constantly enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come. Okay, pause. What he's talking about, guys, is not bounties above and beyond. He's just talking about, I'm just grateful I walked into the grocery store and they had toilet paper.
Yeah. He's saying, no matter all of the evil that's fighting against us,
right?
We still have these normal things. We still get to live our day-to-day lives. The earth is still providing for us. Mm-hmm. We're still here breathing and walking. And he doesn't say it in so many words, but you still get to go outside and see your neighbor. And life is still going on despite all of this evil. And he's saying, take a moment to appreciate the beauty in that.
Exactly. I hear that. And I also hear just being grateful for I was able to pay my rent all year. Yeah. I was able to put groceries on the table. I was able to dress nicely, or I was able to, and it's just because when he says bounties, we're not living in some third world country here. I mean, we are living in the midst of plenty.
Yeah.
And so that to me jumps out in this proclamation more than anything else. But he goes further. Lincoln does. And he writes this in his proclamation. So others have been added. So what he's referring to is other bounties have been added, which are so extraordinary of a nature that they cannot fail to penetrate and soften even the heart, which is habitually insensible. Okay, so pause. Lots of big words there, and it's in the style of the English back then is a little different than it is today.
Most confusing part of the quote.
Yeah, it is the most confusing part of the quote. What he's talking about is, so first of all, he's talking about bounties that are normal. And then he's going, but then there are bounties that are such an extraordinary nature. Okay, present day. Like you won the lottery, okay? Or you got a big bonus check. Or your business in the last month doubled sales or something.
So he's saying like, not only do we have like this baseline of life,
right?
But like, I mean, this is 1861, so they're nowhere near where we are today.
Right.
But even then, he's recognizing like our society is so much further than the primitive society where you were hoping to walk around in the forest and find berries, and you like you still have that baseline,
right?
And we're still above that as well. And he's saying we should be thankful for that, but also because we have all those things that are above that baseline of survival, it almost blinds people to being grateful for the fact that they do have baseline, and kind of overrides that instinct of just the immense joy of when you do go in the forest and find berries.
Right. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to reread a little part of this and take it to the conclusion, so that you get the feel of the whole thing. Now that you've heard a little bit of us kind of talking it out. To these bounties, which are so constantly enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come, others have been added, which are so extraordinary of a nature that they cannot fail to penetrate and soften even the heart, which is habitually insensible, to the ever watchful providence of Almighty God. I just want to add one little thought here. What he's saying there ultimately is even the most insensitive person can't miss extraordinary bounties, even if they miss these other bounties he refers to.
And then Mr. A concludes his letter here by saying, he set aside the last Thursday of November as a day of thanksgiving and praise in the midst of a great war.
And so, AJ and I wish you and your families a very happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
For more conversations like this one, check out this video next. I know you'll love it. And if there's a topic you'd like to hear AJ and I talk about, just leave it in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.